Okay, ladies, so here I am, and I opened up an Acufil design motif here in my Hatch program because what I'm going to walk you through is how I came up with some good ways to work on this project. Now, some of this you could also do in a kind of a similar way if you wanted to work with your Horizon Link Suite program and start opening up some of these Jeff files in there just to experiment with them a little bit because that might be a little bit more user friendly for all of us rather than the limitations that we've experienced in the Acufil program. However, I'm not saying the Acufil program isn't a good one or that it's not working perfectly for us, but just to give you a couple of different ways of thinking about using some of these designs. So what I've got on the screen right now is one of the feather. It was a semicircle of a design in the feather. I'm going to turn that one red so you can see the difference in it. It was this motif. And in my software program, I've got a fancy tool that's called a circle layout. So all you have to do is select your design and then tell it how many times you want it to duplicate itself in a circle shape, and you can make some different kinds of things happen. So anyway, that's what I did with this feather. It was just slightly larger, duplicated this way than the ASQ22 hoop. And so I did have to shrink it down just a tiny bit. I'm thinking probably it barely overlapped on the outer edges here, so it wasn't significant. And I kind of like this circle feather, and so I am actually going to save it for possibly a future use somewhere else. But what I mainly opened up this program for was not really to work with the design motifs per se, but more because I wanted to talk with you about how to figure out some proportions for our project. So one of the features of a software program like this is that you can also set your design layout size. And you can do something similar also over in Horizon Link Suite in the layout mode, because there you're not going to be constrained by a hoop size. Your only constraint within a hoop size is that everything that you put together has to fit within that hoop, right? So we talked about that a little bit when we were doing our class. But in the layout tab of a software program, you are generally going to have a feature that's called your work area. And when you turn this on, you can specify the size and the shape of a design area that you want to start plopping embroidery designs into. So that's what I've done here. And you're going to see that on this project, I've got a square shape that's 15 inches square. And this is my background color. This is how it's going to show itself up on the screen here. Now, the reason why I went with a 15 inch, and I'm just going to walk backwards through here. In class today, we talked about possibly making a cushion that was a 16-inch cushion. So my original plan here was that I would include a 1/2 inch seam allowance all the way around our project. So I was going to make a 17-inch square, okay, based on the fact that we were talking about a 16-inch finished product. I'm going to show you what this hooping looks like in that 17-inch square. All right, so one of the things that you may have heard about in your life, and maybe you haven't, is something called the Fibonacci rules or guidelines for how we decide what's going to be pleasing proportions in a project. And these are proportions that actually come out of nature, and it's sort of a concept of how things need to work in relationship with one another. So this is our hoop. We're limited again by what we can put inside of our hoop to get an efficient stitch out. This is how much extra space we have all the way around our whatever design it is that we set up within this hooping. If I were to open up my measuring tool and measure this space from the edge of my hoop to the outer edge of this design area, we have got almost 4¼ inches of space. All right, which, it looks really significantly large. But the thing that I'm going to tell you is when I look at this, I think it looks too big. This overwhelms what's going on in the center of this hoop. Don't you agree? The other thing about it is that I looked at my Fibonacci. I have a little handout, like a little printout that I keep in my sewing room. And if I have an 8-inch square, or in this case, this is just slightly over 8 inches, but let's just round it down to 8 inches. Some pleasing proportions of borders around an 8-inch square would be 1, 2, 3, or 5 inches. All right, 1, 2, 3, or 5. What we've got going on here is over 4. It's not quite up to 5, and it's just a lot bigger than 3. And so that tells me that one of the things that I think we ought to do is we need to size our whole project down. And that is why a little while ago when I had my um, design layout screen open, excuse me, I touched the wrong thing, my work area button open. I had decided that I thought it would be a better proportion for us to take this down to a 15-inch square. Finished size would be 14 inches. And, whoa, what happened did I do there? Pay attention to what you're doing, otherwise you get some real messes, right? 15 inches, there we go. So when I do 15 inches and you look at that, not so much the wreath that I created here, but more what the center of the hooping looks like. I think that looks like a better proportion. So that's how I'm going to suggest that you do your project also. So I've already told you a little bit about how I made that wreath, which I would then save as a JEF file and possibly use it someday in the future. One of the other designs I worked on, which I really like quite a bit, if you look at this one here, it's this motif here that's highlighted in red. And all I did with this one is I drug it up to the corner and I used a cornering tool and I just duplicated it so it all just turned into one great big motif. And I really think this is quite attractive. Another one that I worked on was a butterfly that came out of the stippling section. I think that's where this one was at. Yeah, in the Acufil tool design collection stippling designs. Remember, these are the ones that are built into our sewing machine. So it's one of the ones in here, and it's just that plain simple little butterfly. If I could find it, I would show it to you. Anyway, it's here somewhere. And all I did with that one also is that I got the butterfly here. When I put it into my design area, I positioned the top part of this feeler of the butterfly and the bottom part of his tail along the horizontal and the vertical lines of the design area. And then I used the cornering tool and it created this sort of a nice little wreath shape. What I like about this one is it's unique, you know, and it doesn't scream out at you that this is actually a design made out of butterflies. The other thing that's nice about this is that you could then use a couple of other little motifs, you know, put something here in the center of it. Let's go ahead and do something like that. Let's take it over to stippling parts. I saw something here that I thought would actually work kind of cute. Let's see if I can find it again. Maybe that one there. I think it was that actually. And what I did with it, again, is I just think I would put it, probably what I would do with this one is, I'm kind of thinking maybe I'd rotate it a little bit. Maybe I don't even need to. It's a little bit big for what I'm thinking I want to do here. How about if I mirror image it? Yeah, let's do this with it here. So again, just kind of position it, you know, along the vertical and the horizontal of the lines here, maybe in a little bit. You might not want them to quite touch each other. And then use your, in this program, they call it something different than cornering, but basically I'm reproducing it there, you know, and that filled in the center pretty nicely. I like that a lot, you know, and maybe adding something in on the outer edges too. You know, all of these things you can be doing in that edit part of the program. You know, I don't know how much time we would want to spend doing something like this, but maybe we'd like that design to be up in a corner maybe or something. I don't know, you know, just kind of play around with some of the things that are here in the program and have some fun maybe making, you know, a unique kind of a layout. Let's see, I'm going to click on this and just rotate that a little bit more. Maybe what I would do with here, I don't even know if this would work, but again, you know, I'm just kind of playing around quickly here. Let's use a tool what I maybe want to use here. Yeah, and another funky thing that's going on with my program and stuff isn't staying centered. So anyway, kind of gives you, looks like a hot mess right now, but maybe wanting to do some of that kind of work here. Let's go with the butterflies here and get everything centered back in the hoop. This is terrible. No, program is just kind of acting up on me, and I don't know if it's because I've got a lot of things open. Anyway, that's just another idea, design idea. Boy, what a mess. That looks just terrible. Okay, kind of cute. Now what I want to talk to you about is the idea about how we're going to decide how big we're going to make our Acufil stipple fill over in the Acufil program. So again, just reminding all of us that you are going to be limited by the size and the shape of your Acufil hoop. Not so much the shape, I guess I should say more the size of it, which as we know is slightly over 8 inches, almost 8 1/4 to be exact. So I've created a couple of areas of solid fill here to give us some ideas for how you decide how you're going to measure out your Acufil borders. So remembering what we wanted to do is we wanted to fill in that design layout area of 15 inches. One of the things you need to remember is that back over in your Acufil program, I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn on our editing size. Here you do have a limitation on the minimum size of your fill. So I've got it right now set in the metric system. This might make a little bit more sense to you if I turn on the unit of measurement to be the inch measurement instead. Okay, so let's look at the editing size. That means 3.94. So we were saying a while ago that our borders actually need to be about 3 inches finished so that it's a pleasing proportion around our 8-inch block. And obviously this is almost 4 inches. So this means that when we design our stipple fill here in Acufil, we can't get it only at 3 inches. We do have to stitch out almost a full 4-inch width, which is really okay because that's, it's going to go all the way out into our seam allowance and it's all going to be good. But I just needed to remind all of us about that, okay? And then back over in my program, so I've created these areas of stipple fill. So these are 2 different ways you can think about how you're going to design your design size. You're limited by the 8-inch hoop, which means that these long sections that are in lime green at the top and the bottom are going to have to be 2 sections of Acufil. So that would be 4 hoopings right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Your sides could be done in a single hooping. So with this layout, with these sort of a dimensions, which would be 15 inches by almost 4 inches, and this one here being 8 1/4 or 220 millimeters by the 4 inches. You could get this all done in 6 hoopings altogether. Or if you wanted to design your design field to look like this, this one here would require 8 hoopings. Again, because this section from here to here is more than an 8-inch hoop. So actually this one here, the borders alone would be 8 hoopings. So, for efficiency's sake, I would say that this would be a better way to go about designing our Acufil stipple. All right, so let's just keep that in mind. This one's going to be 15 inches by that 3.94. This one's going to be 800 and, what is it? Is it about 822, something like that, millimeters, or 8 inches high by 3.94 wide. Let's take a look at that over in Acufil. Here's one that I've been working on here already. So let's take a look at the editing size. Again, one of the things is, I think this is the size of the hoop is 8.66 in inches. But I'm going to cancel out of that and let's just verify. We're going to keep that minimum. Let's go back to millimeters. All right, let's look at our editing size. All right, so we're going to keep our minimum at 100. We can't make it any smaller. And this is our maximum, so it's 220. All right, so let's say, okay, this is it. It's going to be 1 hooping. Next, this is what it's going to look like. And remember, this is going to go on the sides of our design. This is the purple area, okay? So what you want to do from this point here is that you want to, first of all, before you even send this over to your machine, I would suggest that you go ahead and open up your print screen and go ahead and print. You can print it in black and white. I was going to suggest that also, that under your properties that you don't need to print this in color. Black and white's fine because it's just a black and white printout. And let's cancel that. But you are going to want to print your template, and maybe you might want the worksheet. I don't know. You might just want to print the current page rather than doing all of this stuff too. So print that out and then write this design onto your USB. Then go ahead and go back over here and let's adjust our editing size. This time I am going to go back and actually change back into inches, because I remember very easily that my border is going, again, it's going to be, the width is going to be the minimum. And this time my height of my hoop is going to be 15 inches. I'm going to say okay. You can see here on the screen that this is reflecting that we're going to be doing 2 hoopings of this stipple fill. We'll go next. This is how big each one of those areas of stipple fill actually look like. Here's the measurement, 3.94 by 7.48. Again, go ahead and print yourself a template of this design and write this design onto your USB stick. Now, the way that I named my designs here is I named them according to the more or less the dimension of it. This one here, I called it 3 by 15. I've already saved it. And the previous one that was a smaller one that's going along the sides, I called it 3 by 8. And that was just to distinguish between the two files. All right, another thing I want you to notice here on the screen that you may not have seen or noticed before is that if you are using your direct connect cable in between your computer and your sewing machine, make sure that this little check mark is checked. Switch the machine ready to sew. That means that when you are writing this design function over, it's going to communicate directly with your sewing machine and it's going to open up this design in the ready to sew screen. All right. And if you don't have this checked, what this will do is it will send it into the hard drive of your sewing machine so that you can use it again later. And then the only limitation that you're going to have with these designs, once again, I'm going to tell you, is that you're not going to be able to open it up anywhere else except back in this program to adjust that last pattern size. So it's real important that you go ahead and save it either on the machine or in this on your USB drive. Okay, so I just wanted to do one other thing before I finish out this video, and that is let's turn this solid fill into an actual stipple fill. I can do that real easily here because this is my software program, and stipple fill is one of the options that I have in this program. So I'm just simply clicking on those solids and I'm turning them into stipples. They look real similar to what we would be getting out of the Acufil program. So there it is. And I'm going to actually hide my hoop so that you can get a kind of an idea of what that's going to look like on your fabric. So this would be a solid fabric, colored fabric with some pretty decorative quilting stitches and quilting thread on it. And then this stipple fill, you might want to do a printed fabric or something along those lines. And the stipple fill is more or less going to disappear. This isn't the exact same stipple fill that we've done in the Acufil program, but you can see when I zoom in over here where this top section is going to intersect with the bottom section, you're going to get some pretty good matchups here. I think that's a nice thing about this program. So another thing that you might want to do, girls, is when you create your center layout, you might want to do it in Horizon Link Suite and save it as an actual block. And then you could open this block up in our AccuStitch program and you could create a tapered decorative stitch border that you might want to embroider in here after all of this stippling and everything else is done. You could rehoop this fabric and carefully position it in the hoop and you could stitch out a new border in here if you wanted. Or maybe something on your sewing machine or leave it plain. I don't know. Just think about some of those things. So hopefully this video is helpful and I'll be seeing you all and talking to you all again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.